Parents, relatives, friends, guests, and fellow faculty, and graduates of the class of 2025. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Stanford University's 134th commencement exercises and to the Diploma Ceremony for the program in International Relations. And for those of you who are fathers, I want to wish you a very happy Father's Day. I'm sure you know your sons and daughters are giving you the greatest gift that they can, to the end of having to pay tuition. So I'm Ken Schultz. I'm a professor of political science, and I'm the honored to be the faculty director of the International Relations program. I'm delighted to be joined on the stage by a number of faculty who teach and advise in our program, and I'd like to introduce and acknowledge them. So Jasmina Boych, Rachel George, Britton Heller, Bert Pattenoud, Rob Rakove, all lecturers in international relations. Stephen Stedman, who's a senior fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies. Aiko Takeuchi, who's the Liu Dang Lecturer in Undergraduate Teaching and International Relations. And Amy Ziegert, who's senior fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute, and Morris Arnold and Nona Jean Cox, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. We're also delighted to have our keynote speaker, Larry Diamond, who I will be introducing at greater length later, as well as Rich Barton from the class of '89 and a member of the Board of Trustees. Since international relations is an interdepartmental program, many of the faculty who played a key role in teaching and advising the graduates are scattered across campus today at similar ceremonies being held by the departments of political science and history and economics, sociology, the Dorr School of Sustainability, and many more. We also owe a great deal to countless foreign language instructors, as well as faculty at overseas campuses. These links across disciplines and around the world are what give International Relations program its vitality and diversity. Before we turn to our great lineup of speakers, let me just say a few things about the class of 2025, who you see before you here. We have 82 majors and 14 minors in this class. This is a very large number for us, actually, and I'd like to say that's good news, but a large number of international relations majors also tends to mean that things are difficult in the world, so bittersweet. They are also themselves an international group coming from 13 different countries. This year's graduates have shown language proficiency in Amharic, Arabic, Cantonese, Dutch, Farsi, Filipino, French, German, Hindi, Igbo, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, Tigrinya, Urdu, and Zulu, so literally from A to Z. And they have studied on every continent except Antarctica, from places including Accra, Amman, Australia, Beijing, Berlin, Cape Town, Florence, Hong Kong, Istanbul, Madrid, Oxford, Paris, Riga, Santiago, and Shanghai. 22 of our graduates are receiving honors for doing a thesis, either in international relations or in an interdisciplinary honors program. Their theses covered a variety of pressing topics, ranging from North Korea's use of cyber operations, how countries from Taiwan to Brazil to Kenya to here in the United States are being affected by the rise of China, and how people, markets, and even bacteria are responding to a changing climate. So we're very proud of them and all of their accomplishments. So let's give the first round of applause of many today to the class of 2025. So I'm going to go right to our speakers. We're going to hear from two student members of this distinguished class. Our first speaker will be Julia Lasiota. She came to Stanford from Lodz, Poland, specialized in comparative international governance, learned Arabic and Japanese, studied abroad in England, and double majored in history. She has spent the last 4 years asking big questions about the world and occasionally smaller ones, like why the on-call cafe only opens after midnight. She's still looking for answers, but she's learned to enjoy the search. Julia.
When I first arrived at Stanford, I couldn't wait to find the answers to all the global challenges of today and tomorrow, or however I might have phrased it in my application. In our first quarter, nothing seemed like how I had imagined. We still wore masks to lectures and dropped off COVID test kits, but everything seemed to be returning to that Camp Stanford golf resort-like normal that upperclassmen nostalgically described to us, the lost post-pandemic frosh. What I could have never imagined was that the next 4 years would drift only further away from whatever normal everyone seemed to have in mind. The world didn't exactly slow down after the pandemic. We witnessed humanitarian crises, democratic backsliding, disinformation, and wars. Ironically, the very things we thought we would encounter as theoretical case studies in our classes, we ended up living through. And yet, we kept trying to make sense of it all. Sometimes in disagreement, sometimes in tears, oftentimes with passion, and occasionally through the kind of jokes that only land when you're sleep-deprived and just a little too cynical from following the news. Some may call it chaos or polarization, but I came to realize that in the face of all this uncertainty, our campus didn't retreat. It leaned into having difficult conversations. I wasn't always ready for those conversations, but I genuinely began learning just as much outside the classroom as within it. These kinds of worldview-shattering conversation often came at the worst times, an hour before a paper deadline, the morning of my econ midterm, or during casual hangouts in the dorm or at the Uncle Cafe. At Stanford, any quick chat can turn into a debate on global affairs, especially if you have at least one of us, the IR majors, in the room. But what these past 4 years of classes and endless conversations have really taught me is that studying international relations isn't about finding perfect answers to whatever is troubling the world. It is about asking better questions and daring to keep asking them. IR isn't a toolkit, but a way of thinking. We aren't graduating with neat solutions in our back pockets to deploy at any next global crisis. In our time here, we learn to sit with complexity and question our own assumptions. We realize that the most honest answer to many questions is, it depends. We've gotten comfortable with holding multiple perspectives in our minds at once, realizing that two seemingly contradictory things can be both true depending on the context. We discovered that the urge to pick a side immediately often closes off the door to a deeper understanding that comes from sitting with ambiguity a little longer. In a world obsessed with hot takes and immediate reactions to everything happening in every corner of the planet, we learn to pause, to embrace nuance, and to resist the allure of thinking in binaries, unlike some of our friends in computer science. Speaking of friends, people love to corner us, the IR majors, at parties or family dinners. So what should be done about this conflict? What's going to happen with that election? There's this expectation that because we've studied international relations, we should have ready-to-go answers to every single crisis popping up on the newsfeed. But here's what IR has actually taught us. Some of the most costly decisions in foreign policy come from those who feel completely certain that they have all the right answers. One of the most powerful lessons I am taking from Stanford is that it's okay not to have answers immediately, even if it feels like the whole world expects you to have one. What truly matters is staying curious enough to keep engaging with the questions troubling our world, even when they feel uncomfortable. Our class entered college in the shadow of a global pandemic, and we're graduating into a world that feels, if anything, only more unstable and uncertain. The challenges we'll face, both global and personal, don't come with instruction manuals either. Yet I'm certain that we're all equipped to navigate this uncertainty with thoughtfulness and care. We came here hoping to learn answers. We leave knowing that the questions matter even more. Let's be the ones who pause in a world that rarely does. Let's be the ones who think, who ask, and who listen. I can't wait to see where our questions take us next. Congratulations, class of 2025.
Thank you so much, Julia. Our next speaker is Malaina Kapoor. Malaina is from Redwood City, California. She specialized in international security, learned Italian, and studied away in Italy and Washington, D.C. She's graduating Phi Beta Kappa with distinction and with interdisciplinary honors in democracy development and the rule of law. She spent her time at Stanford studying the intersection of foreign policy and gender inequality. She believes the battle for women's rights is integral to our collective security and stability. Malaina will be going to Harvard Law School to pursue a career fighting against gendered legal systems that perpetuate systematic inequality. Malaina.
There are certain hallmarks of a Stanford IR student that make us easy to spot around campus. We congregate in Encina Hall. We always have a paper due. We don oversized shirts that declare we think, therefore, IR. We get push notifications from the New York Times. And any chance we get, we bring up the fact that we studied abroad. These are the traits that are visible from the outside. But when I think of our IR community, I think of something more fundamental that unites us. We read and research and roam the world driven by the basic idea that it matters what happens beyond our own borders. We feel a responsibility to understand the places that are furthest away from us. We've decided to run toward the chaos and complexity and even tragedy of this international system, instead of choosing to turn away. For so many years, like so many of you, I embodied this characteristic IR spirit of perennial engagement. As a kid, I stayed up past my bedtime listening to NPR and brought a duffel bag to the public library. At Stanford, I studied terrorism and dictatorship and war. I wrote a book about a gender apartheid regime so brutal, it haunted me every single day. But still, I moved forward because I believed there was power in bearing witness and danger in willful passivity. Last winter, though, something changed for me. After a year that closed with both personal challenges and political disappointment, I succumbed to the siren song of disengagement. For the first time ever, I stopped reading the news. I avoided discussions about agencies shuttered and peace deals squandered and alliances crumbled. And I saw national leaders and voters of both persuasions behave in the same way. It felt like I was part of a collective sigh of defeat, fueled by a pernicious question. Does the rest of the world really matter to me? My withdrawal felt like freedom, at least for a little while. I was consumed by only my own problems and aspirations, not those of entire nations and continents. If someone mentioned the news, I engaged for a minute and then shrugged sadly as if to say, these are the times we live in. What can we do? Still, underneath it all, I recognized that something was wrong. My breezy conversations started to feel perfunctory. My casual dismissals poked at me. I knew that despite my intentional indifference, the world was experiencing profound changes. To ignore them began to feel like a dereliction of some sort of inherent responsibility. Ultimately, it was the Stanford IR community that woke me up to the consequences of my newfound detachment. Faculty leveraged their personal experiences in Iran and Russia and DC to teach us how apathy is the fuel that sustains today's reigning despots. Classmates parsed our geopolitical climate over long seminars that began with resignation but ended with resolve. Friends reminded me that to lose interest in the world was to lose something within myself. Does the rest of the world really matter to me? It was this community that reminded me that it does, because despite the proliferation of wars and tariffs and ardent nationalism, we ultimately rise and fall together. Because when we ignore injustice somewhere far away, we issue tacit approval for humanity's worst impulses. It was this community that reminded me of the power that comes from engagement with the world, because global consciousness is the first step toward concerted action. It's this sense of power I hope we take with us as we step into the world. The power to bring the lessons of the past and the present to bear on the defining problems of our future. The power to hold evil to account. The power to understand and amplify and act alongside the freedom fighters, innovators, and everyday people who represent a promise of real change. In the offices and classrooms that come next for all of us, there will be people who relinquish this power and succumb to a belief that the rest of the world is no longer worth contending with. This sentiment can be infectious. But I hope we will all carry with us a different spirit that has infected us here on this campus. A spirit of curiosity, a spirit of ideation, a spirit of hope. Last Tuesday, I had my last ever class here at Stanford. To celebrate the end of the year, we met outside. We ate pizza. And as we were chatting, our professor leaned back in her chair and told us a story. She'd just given a lecture on international reporting to a local high school, and afterwards, a 17-year-old boy had come up to her, unconvinced. He told her point blank, "I just don't understand why I should care." That Tuesday, our professor threw this boy's assessment back to us. What would we have said to change his mind? For every student, the answer was different. Some discussed transnational threats like pandemics and climate change. Others talked about our shared humanity. It seemed like this question had been on all of our minds, and in different ways, we'd all found our way to a meaningful answer. Walking out of class that day, I felt a sense of incredible solidarity. Though we may have questioned it in our own ways, at our own times, we're leaving here with a firm belief in the power of international engagement and action. At a time when insularity is celebrated and globalism is decried, we've all made a commitment to a different worldview, one predicated on our unity, not our divisions. Today, more than ever, that's a commitment that takes strength and even courage. But it's also a commitment charged with urgency. Let us pledge to always look beyond our own doorsteps, to read about places we've never been, to find people who don't speak our language, to feel deeply for people we will never meet. Because this will be the key to our individual purpose and our collective ability to make real change in this unfinished world. Thank you.